Hello aspirants, welcome to PW OnlyIAS. I'm your Harpreet Singh, the daily analysis of the Hindu from 28th of December 2024. Let's begin with today's analysis. This particular QR code is basically the QR code of the Telegram account where you can find this particular PDF along with the other material that is required. Now let's have a look at what all topics we are basically covering today. First, the no detention policy scrapped. Dr. Manmohan Singh, we all know the former Prime Minister, the former Finance Minister, economist, basically died yesterday, and we'll be studying about him also, what major changes he brought, what were his policies, and that becomes important. Next, Chinese dam on Brahmaputra. Next is Chuan, then Lesotho, and BBSSL. So we're going to study all these. Let's begin with the analysis. Okay, the main topics. No detention policy. This was in your editorial today, and that is why we were discussing no detention policy. Now, please, the no detention over here doesn't mean with respect to prisoners. It is with respect to the children under the RTI Act. Now, please understand what it basically means. See, when you study the RTI Act also, you'll be realizing that the center introduced the no detention policy under the Right to Education Act 2009. Now, what does this policy do? Let us understand this. This policy mandated that no student in the classes 1 to 8 could fail or be expelled from school until they have completed their elementary education. Right? So that means, supposingly, let us say a child is performing very poorly in his class 2nd. And under normal circumstance, if we assume that, let us say the passing marks, let us say 33%, or let us say out of 100, 30 marks. Let us assume that. And the child regularly gets 20 marks, 10 marks, and he's not improving also. Under that circumstances also, again, retest can be taken, again, test can be taken, but he will not be failed in that particular class. Now, this is again one of the policy under the RTI Act. Now, those seen from a measure that what was the presumption in the mind of the people that these are small classes, and along with it, if we fail a child, possibly he'll not come to the school, he'll feel awkward, he'll leave education also. So these are initial years where there should be the education that should be given, and it should not be based on the fact that the person has failed, because failure is not a right term to call or denote a child during these initial years. So they said there should be no detention policy, and with time the child will be improving as he moves ahead in his classes. But the problem that arises is, please understand, just to get an overview, there was a report by Pratham NGO, ACER report few years back, which said that a class child who is of class 5 cannot do basic arithmetic of class 2nd. Now, that raises a concern that supposingly when you are building your basic mathematics skills, you're learning the basic education system, or what basic maths is, basic English is, basic science is. Now, for that, in that case, if the students are not studying anything also, then also they are promoted. Now, what is going to happen is that is not going to build a proper foundation, because these classes from 1 to 8 are very important, not only for your intellectual development, your brain development, also understanding those concepts which will be used when you enter class 9. Now, 9th, the level of education immediately rises, because 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th are, again, very important classes with respect to what shapes your career also in future. So, the government came to a conclusion that we need to change this. The reason behind, please understand, is that if the child has to improve, what will happen is that if he, let us say, is told to repeat the class in those smaller classes, it is not something that is going to impact them more. But if you fail in the higher classes, when the intellectual development, when the awareness about your self-respect and all these things rise, then it becomes a major concern also. These classes, so there is no issue. Even if a child fails, he can repeat the class and again learn, and whatever the gaps are there, that can be filled. So that is why, please understand, this policy of no detention policy under the RTI Act basically came to debate. Now see, according to Section 16 of the RTI Act 2009, it was specified that no child admitted in a school shall be held back in any class or expelled from school till the completion of elementary school 1 to 8. So, when we talk about universalization of education, of primary education, it meant that every person has a right to free education under the government from class 1 to 8, that is primary education. But it doesn't mean simply that, but because of that, people, the government also started assuming that they should not fail the students also if they do not perform well. And that led to negative repercussions also. We'll see that. So the goal of this policy was to reduce the students' dropout, make learning more enjoyable, and eliminate fear of failure. Now, please understand, this notion is right, but what the problem that arises is that fear of failure is not something wrong. Little bit fear has to be there so that when you face the challenges in future life, you realize that you are better able to deal with those complex situations. Why do you realize in today's time the number of suicides among the younger children is rising? Women, a recent report came that the young girls committing suicide in the school age also. Why? Because remember that small challenges that you face basically build your momentum to fight for bigger challenges. So this preliminarily did sound good, but what happened was that in a long term, it was a negative impact was seen of this. So this is what is the no detention policy, to be very clear. As we move ahead, now what was the reason for scrapping this policy? Now that is again very important. Learning outcomes. Now see, the policy led to decline in the academic performance due to the lack of accountability among the students. Foundational learning levels across the states were observed to be poor. As I said, you must have seen, I had told, mentioned ACER report by Pratham NGO, where it was basically seen that a class 5th student cannot do basic arithmetic of class 2nd. Now, the overall level of education or the foundational skills deteriorated tremendously. And now, what was the problem is that there was no accountability because every day the schools had to basically pass the students, whether they perform well or not well. And now, what happens is that in that particular case, you cannot blame the teachers also. Why? The performance of the teachers, though, yes, it should be on the basis that, yes, teachers have to make sure that students perform well. But when everybody is going to pass by per se under the policy, then how are you going to measure the teachers' performance also per se? That is why the accountability started lacking. And the teachers over here, it was observed that not taking interest also, because they know as it is, they have to pass the children. There will be no concern regarding that. So that has also led to a structural and functional crisis at the level of the primary school. In a way, structurally in a way, because see, the structure is based on the pillars of accountability along with it performance. As it is, you have to pass, so that fails. Functionally, in the way that the teachers have the onus to make sure that the child performs well, but when you have to pass all, the functional loopholes will also come in. So this is what the problem arose. Next is high failure rate. Many students failed at a higher level, particularly in class 10th and 9th, due to the weak foundational skills. ERS report published in 2017 noted that the transition from the primary to the secondary school education was low, resulting in high dropouts in the classes 10th. Why? Because in spite of the poor performance, students used to pass till class 8. When you enter the class 9th and class 10th, you realize that over there, this no detention policy did not exist. And so what ultimate result would be, they were not able to perform well there also, and they used to fail and then drop out. State feedback. 23 states requested modification of the policy, citing adverse effect on the learning quality skills. States like Bihar, Rajasthan, Assam highlighted the concerns about the implementation of this policy. The states themselves say that there is a lot of problem with the no detention policy and it should be scrapped. Next is concerns raised by Punjab. Punjab government in 2014 opposed the no detention policy, citing a drastic fall in the learning outcomes. Learning Outcome Evaluation System, LOES 2016, Punjab introduced this system to evaluate the class 5 and 8 while adhering to the RTI Act. Now, system allowed students to take exams but did not hold them back. Instead, those identified with poor performance received remedial coaching. So there were again concerns raised by Punjab also that, see, the learning outcomes again are going down. So they had obviously introduced certain other aspects of LOES, Learning Outcome Evaluation System, who were failing. So they basically gave them extra coaching so that they can perform well. So these are certain reasons for scrapping. Now, key provision. Now, let us understand that when we are already discussing about the RTI Act and no detention, so we should be knowing that certain provisions in the new amendment that is being proposed. See here, what is the amendment that is being proposed? First, criteria for detention. Student in classes 5 and 8 who fail year-end examination can be detained after failing a re-examination. That means if you give an examination and you fail, you can give another re-examination, and if you fail in that also, then you can be detained. The 2-month remedial instruction period will be provided before a re-examination. Remedial measures: focus will be placed on closing learning gaps through specialized inputs and collaboration between the teachers and the parents. Teachers will guide both students and the parents to improve the learning outcomes. We'll see the problems over here also. Exam pattern: competency-based examination will replace the rote learning with a focus on holistic development. School accountability: the school heads are required. Now, the school heads are required here to maintain the records of the students who are detained and monitor their progress closely. Now, see, when we read about these dimensions of the amendments that are being introduced over here, we see that, okay, this policy is fine, that remedial measure examination would be given to them, or let us say they can again give a re-examination, and if they do not pass, then they can be detained. Fine, good enough. The second provision says that filling the gaps where inputs and collaboration between the teachers and the parents. But the problem that arises is a large number of people come from a very poor background where the parents have no idea of the education, or they themselves are not educated. In that case also, please understand, the parents are also not able to play a very, very impactful role over here. And that is why we realize the role of a teacher becomes very important. And teacher, yes, in training the parents that you should be as a motivating figure if you do not know what the subject is. And then teacher's performance, teacher's role, teacher's input becomes important for shaping the future of the student. Then obviously exam pattern and school accountability. So these are the amendments that are being there. Implementation and the applicability. The amendment rules apply to over 3,000 central government schools, including the Kendra Vidyalayas, Navodaya Vidyalaya and Sainik schools. States have the authority to decide whether to adopt the policy, since the education is a state subject. See, education itself is in a concurrent list, but school education is under the state subject. So that is why it is up to the states to decide. Next is current status of the states. States have scrapped the policy, this policy. Which one? States such as Assam, Bihar, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan have done away with the no detention policy for classes 5 and 8. And states continuing with the policy like Tamil Nadu, Kerala among the states follow the no detention policy. Already the performance is good over there, so there is no issue as per. Impact on education. So if these rules are amended, that means the no detention policy is scrapped. So what is going to be the impact? Greater focus on the learning outcomes. Focus on learning outcomes are expected to improve because the accountability will increase. The teachers will have the onus at why the student is failing. That means there are certain loopholes with respect to your teaching also. So that focus will be created over there, and obviously students' accountability and their performance will slowly increase. Increased accountability, teachers and school will lead to more responsive addressing the gaps and ensuring that the remedial measures are such that overall you shape the future of the children. Along with it, along with these, please understand, these measures also help the students to basically evolve in a way that they are better prepared to deal with the future challenges that they come across. That is what is the way forward. So that is the right step. Now again, these are the articles that are present in the newspaper and many more with respect to Dr. Manmohan Singh. And we all should be thanking him for the contribution that he has made to India. See, please remember one thing. When we talk about leaders, when you talk about politicians, all those words come. But for him, a very good word that comes is statesman. Irrespective of the party lines or that, his focus had always been a very calm personality, a very focused personality. Along with it, coming with the reforms in the 90s when we realized that India was facing financial crisis. And then along with it, played a very important role in the international affairs also. So please remember, we should remember as him as a prime minister who has contributed tremendously to the growth and development of India, and we should remember him in that way. So let us see a brief overview of his contribution. Personalities: he was born in undivided Punjab, right now in what is in Pakistan. So he does his bachelor's in economics in the Punjab University. Then he went to the Cambridge University. He went to the Oxford University. He has written. Now, see, please remember, in UPSC asks you the book written by whom, who has written this book. So that is why, because Dr. Manmohan Singh died yesterday. So these named the India's export trends and prospects of self-sustained growth. Now, this books like this becomes important that can be asked in your examination. So please, that is why writing these personal detail is not because for fun over here. Please remember that this becomes important because civil services in the preliminary exam, they can ask you anything. So these things become important. Then he had held very important posts like the chief economic advisor, the governor of the RBI, the head of the planning commission. And we know as a political career, member of the Rajya Sabha, he has never been a member of the Lok Sabha. That is again very important thing to understand. This can be asked in your prelims as a statement. Leader of opposition Rajya Sabha, Prime Minister of India from 2004 to 2014, 2 terms, Finance Minister from 1991 to 1996. Awards, Adam Smith Prize, Euro Money Award, Asia Money Award, and whatnot. Padma Vibhushan, honorary degree from the Cambridge and Oxford universities. So he has had a fantastic career. Now, if you talk about his role as a finance minister, you'll be realizing that he basically introduced a lot of reforms, right? There are details also mentioned over here. We'll not go into the R&D over here. Basic things we're going to study. See, he was one who basically brought with the reform of what we know as the liberalization, privatization, globalization, LPG. Now, he is one of the architects of the present economic structure that we see. So, liberalization, new trade policies came, which was introduced to boost exports, tradable EXIM scripts, which basically again made the export, or let us say the environment, work culture, empowerment with respect to trade commerce much more better. Trade monopoly, provisions of monopolies and restrictions were relaxed. Abolition of the license Raj took place. Financial sector reforms, we realized that, such as reducing the statutory liquidity ratio SLR and the CRR were basically reduced, so that in order to increase the efficiency of the banking system and having more liquidity in the uh, market also for that matter. So these things are done, which basically made or shifted us towards from a purely socialistic background to a little bit a tinge towards the capitalistic environment, because that was a need of the hour. We had to open our market. So that is where Dr. Manmohan Singh played a very, very important role. Now, as we move ahead, you will be realizing that privatization, you will be realizing FDI, foreign direct investment, automatic approval in foreign direct investment up to 51% was introduced compared to the previous limit, which was 40%. That means now the foreign investors could play a very important role with respect to the managerial roles in the companies also, because they had 51% stake also in that. They could basically buy that stake. Then public sector monopoly as a way was relaxed in a way. See, in certain cases, yes, but those which were important for the security, those were not relaxed. See, let us say defense at that time or railways was certain places which were not relaxed. But again, we realized that disinvestment did take place. Certain stakes in the public sector and prices were sold also. Like we realized that private sector entering those PSUs also did play an important role in their improvement of the functioning also. So liberalization with that respect also played a very important role. So moving ahead, globalization, we realized that open economy focusing was on integrating the India's economy with the global market. So that is why we realized that opening our doors and markets was a very important role. Rupee devaluation, massive devaluation of the rupee and new trade policies made India's export more competitive in nature. Next is reducing tariff barriers. So the tariffs that were imposed on the foreign products were reduced, so that what happens is that more companies started investing in India. So we were like a global player. That means we are connected with the other parts of the world. That plays a very important role. Next, as we move ahead as a prime minister, continuation of the FDI policies, and while in certain cases they were permitted even to 100%. So next, special economic zones were enacted by the SEZ Act of 2005, which were basically export zones under which, let us say an SEZ region across, let us say Mumbai. Now what happens is those are exports hub where a lot of liberal policies with respect to taxes are given. So that means it is treated as an alien land. And under that, what is produced is basically for the purpose of exporting. So that which will lead to obviously a lot of manufacturing industries coming up, employment being generated. Along with it, development of the region will take place. So SEZ concept basically was one that is one of the brainchild of Dr. Manmohan Singh. Then public-private partnership, PPP, is another very important model where we realize that everything cannot be done by the government. And along with it, we need the expertise from the private sector also. So these model came up. Various models are there under PPP, where the public sector and the private sector are basically collaborating for development of various infrastructure projects and all, which basically led to overall growth and development of India. Manufacturing sector focus, we realize that national manufacturing policy, again, to increase the share sector importance or the roles of the manufacturing in the GDP also will played a very important role even during the 2007 crisis also. When the whole world was suffering, particularly the Western world, India was still going smoothly. And that is one of the major reasons why our economy had been strengthened over the years, where Dr. Manmohan Singh did play a very important role. Next, US nuclear deal. Now, this is something very important. The Indo-US nuclear deal signed in 2008 for the civilian use of the nuclear energy is something very important. It was his skills and way we basically came closer to United States during that time also. And that was a major achievement because US had always been very skeptical of India because of its closeness to Russia. So signing this was a major masterstroke with respect to the foreign policy under his prime ministership. Next is global financial crisis, shielded during the 2000 global financial crisis through prudent economic means. Next, major acts that were passed. Now, what you see today are some of the brainchilds of Dr. Manmohan Singh, like Right to Information Act 2005, Right to Education Act 2009. Right now, we were studying about the amendment to the RTI Act, so you can realize that it was passed during his tenure. Then we have the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. Again, a very important scheme. Next is Aadhaar. What we talk about today, everything is linked to Aadhaar. Again, a brainchild which was passed during the Dr. Manmohan Singh's regime. If you talk about the notable foreign policies achievements under the US-India relationship, we realize that India-US civil nuclear agreement was signed during the 2008 for civilian or peaceful use of the nuclear energy for generation of electricity and peaceful use. So that is again a master stroke over here. Economic collaboration. We realize that bilateral trade grew fivefold from 20 billion in 2000 to 132 billion in 2015. Along with it, we had under the US relationships, Super Hercules being bought, and so many improvement in the relations being observed over here. Improved ties with Russia, engaged in economic cooperation despite the boundary disputes, and along with it, strengthening the dialogue in with respect to Indo-Russian relationships also, reinforce the defense ties with over 90%, 70% of the India's manufacturing or hardware manufacture stuff that we have with respect to defense is basically during that time was imported from Russia. So strengthening of the ties with Russia also was a very important role. Again, Russia has helped India a lot with respect to the nuclear energy also and the support. That is why Russia's relationships also improved under Dr. Manmohan Singh. Regional cooperation in Southeast Asia, we realize that India's role strengthened the role with respect to the SAARC, South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation, to promote regional and economic integration. And then if we see India's role in the global institution, we realize India advocated under his regime and focused very categorically with respect to India's permanent membership for the United Nations Security Council, played proactive role in G20, BRICS, IPSA, that is India, Brazil, South Africa. Again, Copenhagen Climate Summit that we talked about, where the developed countries had focused on promising $100 billion annually to the developing nations, or they did not succeed in that. They did not do that. But the agreement basically was under this particular Copenhagen Climate Summit that took place. And you know that very well in the COP29 that took place in Baku this very year. Over here, 300 billions have been promised by the developed countries to the developing countries. So this you should be able to relate to these things because we have already done that in the previous lectures also. So uh, then engagement with Africa and Latin America. So please understand, Indo-Africa Forum Summit was basically started over here. Then India hosted an Indo-Africa Forum Summit in 2008 and extended a 5 billion credit line of support to the African countries. So trade boosting was also one of the integral parts with respect to Look East policy, so that we can strengthen our relationship with our eastern neighbors also. So strengthening the relation with the Asian countries was a very important measure through boosting the trade ties. Along with it, we realize that security measures and a regional cooperation, because various regions in the southeastern nations are all aggrieved by the expansionist policies of China over here. Collaboration with them does help us to have an upper hand against China also. So that did start from the time of Dr. Manmohan Singh. So he has played a very, very important role and can be very categorically said as one of the architects of modern India. And that is why what we are doing now also, the future governments also have been building on the various things that have been done by Manmohan Singh. And we know that his tremendous contribution shall be remembered as one who did help India to, let us say, come out of economic crisis or various problems that India faces, along with other people also. Please remember, alone one person cannot do many things. It is obviously the teams that are contributing, but again, he has been a brilliant man who contributed tremendously to the country. So we should be thankful and always remember him with a true spirit. Let's move ahead. China's dam in Brahmaputra. So this was an article. Please remember that China has approved the construction of the world's largest hydropower dam on the lower reaches of the Yarlung-Zanbo River, which is basically Brahmaputra River, in the Tibetan name of Brahmaputra near the Indian border. Now see over here. This is the region. The dam is approved. So the dam is to be constructed in the Yarlung-Zanbo River in the Tibetan name of Brahmaputra River. The region proposed dam is situated in Tibet. A massive gorge in the Himalayan region would be created, takes a U-turn. So when the river takes a U-turn over here, it is a dam is being proposed over here. Now this is intentionally very often always done by China to create regional instability and surpasses China's Three Gorge Dam. Now this dam is the world's largest dam. Now please remember, currently the China's Three Gorges Dam, which is currently the largest hydropower project in the world, the dam being proposed is much larger than that also. That is what again the problem is. Now that will impact the water flow that is taking place in India. Earlier projects in the Brahmaputra, China, 2015, China operationalized first hydropower project in Zangbo in Tibet. Additionally, Dagu, Jigsu, and Jiacha, these are also projects that are being developed in the various regions of in the course of Brahmaputra River. Now, concerns for India is, please see, the amount of water that is basically would be released from the dam will also now decrease. Now, that raises a concern with respect to security. That raises a concern with respect to agriculture being practiced. That raises the concern with respect to, in a way, you trying to raise the disputes with India. Along with it, this dam construction is approved without any negotiation with India or for that matter, Bangladesh also. So this leads to a lot of problems in the regional security as well as peace in the nation and across the borders. So the size and scale of the project could be enable China to release large quantities of water, potentially flooding also. Now what happens, supposingly India is at not in good relationship with China and that releases massive water. That will lead to flooding in this whole region because of the large amount of water that is going to be stored in that dam. That is what is some of the concerns. So we should be very aware of the positioning as well as the dimension. Now, please understand, mains question of the day. Scrapping no detention policy is a right way forward in achieving holistic education. Critically examine. Try this question. It is important. Let's see how you do this. Next, prelims notes topics. Sichuan. Now, this is one of the large amphibious warship that is being launched by China. Let's see what it is. It is China's first amphibious assault ship of 0.76 type. It is again a classification. China's largest ship yet and displaying 4,000 ton. Now, it is a massive size. It has electromagnetic catapult. Excuse me. It has electromagnetic catapult, so it allows the fighter jets to launch directly off the deck. Now, this basically places China at a very important position because this is going to challenge directly not only India, but also United States. So, this can be asked as a single word what it is. So, you should have a brief idea. I'm displaying the photograph also. So, over here, the planes, fighter jets are going to land and take off. There are placed for helicopters also to again land. So, this is basically strengthening the naval power of China, which is again expansioning not only towards the Southeast Asian, the North Sea region, another Chinese Sea region, but also in the Indian Ocean region also. This can be seen as a challenge to the peace and stability to the Indo-Pacific region, where Quad again has to take remedial measures, or let us say counter measures, in order to take counter China over here. That is why please realize this is basically a counter measure to the measures that are taken by Quad. So let's move ahead. Next, Lesotho. Now see, India had basically sent humanitarian assistance to Lesotho. Now what is Lesotho? Please understand. India sent humanitarian consignment to Lesotho, 100 metric tons of rice. So Lesotho, formerly known as the Kingdom of Lesotho, formerly known as Bastololand, it is in the southern and the eastern hemisphere of the earth. It is a landlocked country in southern Africa, surrounded by South Africa. Capital is Maseru, nicknamed as Mountain Kingdom or the Kingdom of the Sky. Important aspects, this can be again asked in your prelims. Highest peak, Thabana Nithiana, or it is a part of the Maluti and Drakensberg mountain ranges. Major rivers are Senku rivers, also known as the Orange River in South Africa, originates in the highlands of the Drakensberg mountain and flows through the country before joining the Orange River in the South African region. This is a little bit idea you should be knowing. Let's move ahead. So there was a word BBSSL in the newspaper. So it is basically Bharatiya Bij Sahakari Samiti Limited. So you should be having an idea what it is, can be asked in your prelims. Recently, the Union Minister of Cooperation chaired a meeting of the Bharatiya Bij Sahakar Samiti Limited in New Delhi. Now, what it is? Bharatiya Bij Sahakari Samiti Limited, that is BBSSL, is a multi-state cooperative society. Remember, multi-state cooperative society promoted by IFCO, CRIBHO, NAFED, National Dairy Development Board, and NCDC. So there are a lot of stakeholders promoted by them. Established by the Ministry of Cooperation and the Multi-State Cooperative Society Act of 2002. Objective, what is the objective? To enhance India's agricultural productivity by focusing on production, preservation, and promotion of high quality seeds. So how you can basically produce high quality seeds is something the major emphasis of this Samiti. What are the measures should be done? What are the best practices should be adopted so that better output can be reaped? So what are the importance? It reduces the dependence on the imported seeds by boosting domestic seed production. Next is enhances agricultural output, contributing to Make in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat. Strengthens the rural economy by empowering the farmers and the cooperatives. So this is again the benefit. Let's move ahead. Multiple choice question. Question number 1 with the options. Solution 1 is C. Question 2 with options. Answer is B. Question 3 or with options. Answer is D. Question 4 with options. Answer is B. Question 5, its options. Answer is A. So this was the analysis of Hindu from today's newspaper. Hope you liked it and enjoyed it. We'll be continuing on Monday so that whatever is there is requirement for your preparation for civil services. We will be meeting those requirements so that you work hard, study hard. Please remember, whatever topics are being done over here are important both from prelims and mains perspective per se. Many times when people discuss with me, they often say that these are a lot of topics are main centric also. Remember that today when you see the prelims paper also, they pick up questions from the topics of main. So do not segregate it into prelims and mains separately also, because any question that is appearing from the perspective of prelims is important can be asked in mains. And what is important from the perspective of mains can be asked in prelims. So both are correlated. So please take that into consideration always. So focus on what is being taught. That is the requirement for civil services also. Take care and Jai Hind.